The Inbred Bride, the Appalachian woman who married, poisoned, and buried her entire family. A chilling testament to the consequences of generational isolation in America's forgotten hollows. In the mist-shrouded valleys of West Virginia, where mountain ridges cut off communities from the outside world like prison walls, the Blackwood family maintained a bloodline so concentrated it created its own ecosystem of suffering. It was October 1952 when the disturbing reality of the Blackwood Hollow was first discovered by authorities. Their homestead had been established in 1887 when Jeremiah Blackwood led his wife, 2 brothers, and their families deep into an isolated valley, accessible only by a single dirt path that became impassable during the winter months. This geographical isolation soon became genetic isolation. What we found in that hollow defied everything we understood about family structures in America, explained Sheriff Thomas Reeves in his 1953 report. 3 generations were living in a compound of 6 cabins, all descended from the original Blackwood brothers, all bearing the physical markers of concentrated heredity. The most disturbing discovery wasn't merely the physical manifestations of successive generations of familial unions, but the figure at the center of it all, Martha Blackwood. Born in 1925, she was the product of a father-daughter union, and she would later orchestrate one of the most methodical family eliminations in Appalachian history. Martha exhibited the classic physical signs of genetic concentration: a protruding brow, asymmetrical facial features, and significantly reduced stature. But unlike many of her relatives who displayed intellectual impairments, Martha possessed a cunning intelligence that made her particularly dangerous. Medical examinations conducted after her capture revealed an unusual brain development. Parts were stunted, while others were overdeveloped, creating a mind capable of both sophisticated planning and complete moral detachment. Her condition represents a fascinating genetic anomaly, noted Dr. Elias Harmon, who studied the case in 1953. The same bloodline that produced severe impairments in her cousins created in Martha a unique neurological structure that eliminated emotional barriers while enhancing certain cognitive functions. The Blackwood family existed in near-complete isolation from American society. They subsisted through small-scale farming and occasional fur trapping. Their interactions with the outside world were limited to twice-yearly trips to the nearest town, 15 miles away, where they would trade for essential supplies. These rare appearances became something of local folklore. The Blackwoods would come into town in spring and fall, recalled Emma Jenkins, who operated the general store in Millerton. You could always tell them apart, not just by their appearance, but by how they moved together, like they were all parts of one organism. Martha would always do the talking while the others stood back. Even as a young girl, she handled all the transactions. The isolation wasn't merely geographical. County records showed that between 1887 and 1952, only 3 birth certificates were filed for Blackwood children, despite evidence of at least 27 births within the family compound. No death certificates were ever filed. No Blackwood children were ever enrolled in public schools. No family members ever sought medical care from licensed physicians. They existed outside the systems that connected most Americans to society. This isolation created the perfect conditions for what geneticists now recognize as a classic closed genetic pool, where recessive traits become increasingly expressed with each generation. The Blackwood family tree wasn't a tree at all, but rather a complex web with individuals appearing in multiple positions across family relationships. It was impossible to create a standard family tree, explained genealogist Rebecca Wilson, who studied the case in the 1970s. Every individual was related to every other individual through multiple pathways of kinship. The mathematical probability of receiving identical genetic material increased exponentially with each generation. Martha's story truly begins with her mother, Eliza Blackwood, who died during childbirth in 1925. Eliza herself was the product of first cousins and was made to wed her own father, Joseph Blackwood, in a ceremony conducted within the family. This union produced Martha, whose arrival caused Eliza's death, creating both Martha's entry into the world and the first vacancy she would later fill. Check if you're already subscribed to this channel. These true historical accounts expose society's darkest corners and reveal what happens when isolation corrupts human genetics and behavior. Subscribe now to understand humanity's hidden past. Martha Blackwood's early years were shaped by the harsh realities of life in the isolated hollow. Raised primarily by her grandmother, Esther Blackwood, Martha learned the folk remedies and traditional knowledge passed down through generations. Esther herself, the product of a union between half-siblings, possessed extensive knowledge of local plants and their properties, knowledge that would later serve Martha's sinister purposes. Esther was known in the hollow as a healer, explained cultural anthropologist Dr. Lauren Montgomery, who specialized in Appalachian folk medicine. She understood which plants could cure and which could harm. This traditional knowledge was particularly strong in isolated communities where conventional medicine was inaccessible. The Blackwood compound consisted of 6 crude cabins arranged in a semicircle around a central clearing. Family records discovered after authorities investigated the case revealed a disturbing pattern. By the age of 15, Martha had been promised as a bride to her uncle, Thomas Blackwood, who was 42 years her senior and had already fathered children with 2 of his nieces. Photographs recovered from the Blackwood property, now preserved in the West Virginia State Historical Archives, show the physical manifestations of successive generations of familial unions. The images reveal individuals with unusually close-set eyes, malformed limbs, and disproportionate facial features. Yet Martha, while displaying some of these characteristics, maintained a functionality that many others in the family lacked. The genetic anomalies exhibited by the Blackwood family are consistent with what we understand about consanguineous reproduction, explained geneticist Dr. Helen Crawford in her 1963 study of isolated Appalachian communities. Each generation compounds the probability of recessive genetic disorders expressing themselves in offspring. In 1940, when Martha was 15, her grandmother Esther died of pneumonia during a particularly harsh winter. This left Martha without protection and accelerated the family's plans for her marriage to her uncle Thomas. According to journal entries found in Martha's cabin, this event marked a turning point in her life. * Grandmother gone now. Father says I am to marry Uncle Thomas come spring. I have counted the plants in the North Woods. I know which ones grandmother showed me. I know what they can do when mixed in the right ways. *. The spring of 1940 saw Martha's wedding to Thomas Blackwood in a ceremony conducted by her father, Joseph, who held a self-appointed position as the family's spiritual leader. No official marriage records were ever filed with county authorities. The ceremony, according to Martha's journals, involved bloodletting from both bride and groom, mixing their blood in a clay cup and drinking from it to strengthen the family blood. Martha's new position as Thomas's wife gave her control over the preparation of food for his household, which included Thomas himself and 2 adult children from his previous union with another family member. These children, according to medical records later compiled, displayed severe intellectual impairments and required constant care. The household dynamics within the Blackwood family created a perfect environment for Martha's later actions, noted forensic psychologist Dr. Raymond Parker, who studied the case in the 1980s. She was placed in a position of daily care for individuals who were completely dependent on her, giving her both motive and opportunity. Within 6 months of her marriage to Thomas, Martha became pregnant. The pregnancy resulted in a stillbirth in early 1941, a male child with severe physical deformities, including an undeveloped brain and fused limbs. This experience, documented in Martha's journals, appears to have cemented her resentment toward the family practices. * The baby came wrong. All wrong inside and out. I buried him behind the cabin where the others won't find him. This is what comes of the family blood. This is what they've made. *. Between 1941 and 1945, Martha's position within the family structure evolved. Thomas Blackwood suffered a debilitating stroke in 1943, leaving him bedridden and entirely dependent on Martha's care. This increased her autonomy within the household and her control over daily activities. Her responsibilities expanded to include caring for other family members with various impairments. During this period, Martha began making more frequent solo trips to the nearest town, ostensibly to trade for supplies. Town records indicate these visits increased from the traditional twice-yearly family expeditions to monthly appearances by Martha alone. During these visits, she began acquiring knowledge about the outside world through conversations and occasionally purchased newspapers. She would ask the strangest questions, recalled Henry Watson, who worked at the Millerton General Store during the 1940s. Wanted to know about families in other places, how they lived, how many children they had. She'd ask about medicines, too, and once about rat poison. Said they had a problem with vermin in their stores. By 1945, Martha had established herself as an essential caregiver within the Blackwood compound. She prepared meals, administered folk remedies, and cared for the most impaired family members. She had also begun keeping detailed journals, recording observations about family members' conditions, behaviors, and dependencies. These journals, discovered years later, revealed a methodical study of her family's vulnerabilities and a growing conviction that the Blackwood bloodline needed to end. By 1946, Martha Blackwood had developed an intimate knowledge of every member of the Blackwood family, their routines, their ailments, and most importantly, their dependencies. The family compound housed 23 individuals across 3 generations, all connected through a complex web of familial relationships that had grown increasingly tangled with each generation. Medical records compiled after authorities investigated the case revealed the extent of genetic deterioration within the family. 17 members displayed visible physical abnormalities ranging from minor facial asymmetry to severe skeletal malformations. 14 exhibited intellectual impairments, from mild developmental delays to conditions requiring constant care. 5 suffered from seizure disorders. 3 were completely nonverbal. All of these conditions had become more pronounced with each successive generation. The Blackwood family represents a textbook case of genetic collapse due to inbreeding, explained geneticist Dr. William Foster in his 1954 paper on the case. The limited genetic diversity created a concentration of deleterious recessive traits that would otherwise remain dormant in a more diverse population. Martha's husband, Thomas Blackwood, died in February 1946 after 3 years of being bedridden. His death appeared to be from natural causes, a second, more severe stroke. No autopsy was performed, as family tradition dictated immediate burial on the property. Martha's journal entry from this date reads simply, Thomas is gone. The first debt paid. With Thomas's death, Martha assumed a more central role in family operations. She began overseeing the distribution of food throughout the compound, preparing communal meals for larger family gatherings, and expanding her garden of medicinal herbs. Her knowledge of plant properties, inherited from her grandmother and enhanced through her own experimentation, gave her precise control over dosages and effects. Traditional Appalachian knowledge of plant medicine was extensive and sophisticated, noted ethnobotanist Dr. Catherine Miller. A skilled practitioner could induce effects ranging from mild sedation to fatal poisoning, often using plants that grew naturally in the surrounding forests. Between March 1946 and November 1949, 7 more Blackwood family members died. All deaths appeared to be from natural causes, respiratory infections, heart failure, seizures. No medical professionals were called. No death certificates were filed. Each body was buried on the property according to family custom. Martha's journal entries during this period reveal a calculated approach to each death. She referred to them as clearings, necessary removals of what she called the ruined branches of the family tree. Cleared Samuel today. Mixed the foxglove with his morning tea. His heart was weak already. No one will question it. Rebecca had her last seizure this morning. I made sure of it. The berries worked quickly. Another clearing complete. By 1950, the Blackwood compound had been reduced to 14 individuals. Martha had strategically eliminated those most visibly affected by the family's genetic deterioration, focusing first on those whose conditions might draw outside attention if ever seen by strangers. I know you're watching this because deep down you're haunted by humanity's darkest truths. If you feel that mixture of fascination and horror right now, type ********. The bloodline ends here ****** in the comments so I know who truly understands the gravity of these historical cases. Martha's position within the family continued to strengthen. She had married her cousin Ezra Blackwood in a ceremony conducted by her father in 1947 following Thomas's death. Ezra, while displaying the physical markers common to the family, maintained sufficient functionality to assist with farming and hunting. This marriage strengthened Martha's claim to leadership, as Ezra was considered part of the family's primary line. The most disturbing aspect of Martha's journal entries from this period is her clear understanding of genetics. Despite having no formal education, she documented observations about which family unions produced the most severe impairments in offspring. She tracked physical and cognitive characteristics across generations. She developed a rudimentary but effective understanding of inheritance patterns. The children of brother and sister come worst. The children of father and daughter next worst. First cousins sometimes produce one good child and three ruined. The family blood has become poison. It must not continue. Between 1950 and 1951, Martha accelerated her efforts. 6 more family members died, all from apparently natural causes. All buried on the property. By spring 1952, only Martha, her father Joseph, her husband Ezra, and her half-brother James remained in the compound. Martha's final journal entry, dated September 12, 1952, revealed her endgame. The last 3 will join us for dinner tomorrow. I have prepared the special mushrooms. After tomorrow, the poisoned blood ends. No more children born wrong. No more family marriages. The Blackwood line dies with me. On September 13, 1952, Martha served a meal containing deadly amanita mushrooms to her father, husband, and half-brother. All 3 died within hours. Martha buried them in pre-dug graves behind the main cabin. Then, in her final act, she walked 15 miles to the sheriff's office in Millerton. Sheriff Thomas Reeves was completing routine paperwork on the morning of September 14, 1952, when Martha Blackwood walked into his office. Her appearance immediately marked her as unusual, small in stature with distinctive facial features that suggested generations of close familial breeding. But it was her calm demeanor that truly unsettled the sheriff as she made her confession. "I've ended the Blackwood line," she stated without emotion. "They're all buried in the hollow. I'm the last one and I won't have children. The poison blood stops with me." Initially skeptical, Sheriff Reeves assembled a small team to investigate the remote Blackwood property. What they discovered would shock even the most seasoned officers and eventually draw attention from medical researchers across the country. "We found a compound that existed completely outside modern society," Sheriff Reeves later testified. 6 crude cabins, no electricity, no running water. And behind those cabins, we found graves. 23 of them. Most were old, but 4 were fresh. Forensic investigation revealed that Martha had systematically eliminated her family over a 6-year period. The bodies exhumed from the property showed evidence of various poisons derived from plants native to the region: foxglove, water hemlock, Jimson weed, and several varieties of mushroom. The methods had been carefully selected to mimic natural causes based on pre-existing conditions of the victims. "It was the most methodical family elimination I've ever encountered," noted FBI investigator Robert Lawson, who was called in to assist local authorities. "She used different substances for different victims, always choosing poisons that would produce symptoms consistent with their existing health problems. Some were quick, others were administered slowly over weeks or months." Martha cooperated fully with investigators, providing detailed information about each killing and leading authorities to her hidden journals. These writings, spanning over a decade, documented not only her methods but also her motivations, a disturbing blend of mercy, revenge, and genetic calculation. The journals revealed that Martha had developed her own understanding of inheritance and genetic deterioration through careful observation of her family across generations, without any formal education. She had recognized that the family's practice of intermarriage was causing progressive physical and cognitive decline. "The Blackwood case is remarkable for many reasons," explained Dr. Eleanor Richards, who studied Martha's journals for her research on intuitive understanding of genetics in isolated populations. But perhaps most fascinating is how Martha developed a functional understanding of genetic inheritance through pure observation. Decades before genetic science would confirm many of her observations, Martha's journals contained crude but effective family trees, tracking physical and mental characteristics across generations. She noted which types of familial unions produced the most severe impairments and which traits seemed to strengthen or weaken across generations. She'd essentially conducted a multigenerational genetic study without any scientific training. The baby from cousins Sarah and Uncle William had the twisted spine just like Sarah's brother who came from her mother and grandfather. The bad seed passes down this line always. Investigators also discovered evidence that Martha had attempted to prevent further births within the family. Her garden contained plants traditionally used to prevent pregnancy, and her journals noted administering these to younger female family members. She had appointed herself both executioner and genetic guardian of the Blackwood line. I give Ruth the specialty every month after her bleeding. No more children will come from her and her brother. No more wrongness will be born. As news of the case spread, medical researchers became increasingly interested in studying the Blackwood family. Physical anthropologists examined the remains exhumed from the property. Geneticists created detailed pedigrees based on Martha's journals and available county records. Neurologists studied Martha herself, fascinated by the cognitive functioning that had emerged from a deeply inbred genetic line. The Blackwood family represents one of the most extreme cases of sustained consanguinity ever documented in modern America, wrote Dr. Harold Mitchell in his 1955 paper on the case. The physical and cognitive manifestations observed across generations provide valuable data on the expression of recessive disorders in closed genetic populations. Photos taken during the investigation show the Blackwood compound as a time capsule of 19th-century Appalachian life. The cabins contained handmade furniture, tools, and clothing consistent with traditions dating back generations. There was no evidence of modern technology, no radio, no electric appliances, no motor vehicles. The family had maintained not only genetic isolation but cultural isolation as well. They existed in a bubble outside of American history, observed cultural historian Dr. Amanda Carter. While the country moved through 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and the beginning of the atomic age, the Blackwoods remained frozen in the practices and technologies of the 1880s. Martha Blackwood's trial began in December 1952. Her court-appointed attorney attempted to mount an insanity defense, but psychiatric evaluations revealed Martha to be fully aware of her actions and their legal consequences. She understood the nature of murder and knew that killing was prohibited by law. What made her case unusual was not a lack of comprehension, but a different moral framework entirely. "I did what needed doing," she testified. The family blood had gone bad. The children were coming wrong, each generation worse than the one before. "I ended the suffering. I stopped the